Göring-Mischung or Göring-Mix-1 was a system for injecting nitrous oxide into aircraft engines that was used by the Luftwaffe in World War II. This increased the amount of oxygen in the fuel mixture and thereby improved high-altitude performance. GM-1 was used in a number of modifications of existing fighter designs in order to counter the increasing performance of Allied fighters at higher altitudes. A different system for low-altitude boost, known as the MW50, was also used, although the GM-1 and MW50 were rarely used on the same engine. The MW50 or Methanol Wasser 50 was a 50 and 50% mixture of methanol and water that was often sprayed into the supercharger of World War II aircraft engines, allowing the use of increased boost pressures. The secondary effects were cooling of the engine and charge cooling. Higher boost was only effective at altitudes below the full throttle height, where the supercharger could still provide additional boost pressure that was otherwise wasted, while the smaller secondary effects were useful even above that altitude. The effect of the MW50 injection could be dramatic. Simply turning on the system allowed the engine to pull in more air due to the charge cooling effect, boosting performance by about 100 horsepower. However, the MW50 also allowed the supercharger to be run at much higher boost levels as well, for a combined increase of 500 horsepower. The MW50 was fully effective up to about 6,000 meters, above which it added only about 5% extra power due largely to charge cooling. Aircraft generally carried enough MW50 for about two 10-minute periods of use, allowing them to increase their climb rate and level speed in combat for interception missions. Fittings for the MW50 first appeared on the BMW 801D engine in 1942. The BMW 801 was a powerful German air-cooled engine built by the BMW and used in a large number of Luftwaffe aircraft. Kurt Tank, the famous German engineer and test pilot, successfully fitted a BMW 801 to a new fighter design he was working on, and as a result the 801 became best known as the power plant for the famous Focke-Wulf FW-190. But the BMW-50 never went into production for this engine because the cylinder heads developed micro cracks when the MW-50 was used. Instead, the DB605 engined later versions of the Messerschmitt Bf109 were fitted with an MW-50 injection system from the beginning of 1944. Later engine designs all included the fittings as well, notably the Junkers UMO 213, which relied on it to increase non-boosted performance and tune the supercharger for higher altitudes. However, the MW-50 was not the only charge cooling system to be used by the German Air Force. Many of the late war engines also included the GM-1, a system for high-altitude boosts, which added oxygen to the fuel-air mix by injecting nitrous oxide into the supercharger. The GM-1 was typically sprayed in liquid form directly into the supercharger intake from two jets of different bore, while at the same time the fuel flow was increased to take advantage of the additional oxygen from the nitrous oxide. Initially intended as standard equipment for the Luftwaffe, in operational service it was found that the GM-1 had some drawbacks. The additional weight of the equipment reduced performance on all missions, while the system was only used in the cases where the aircraft went to very high altitudes. The GM-1 also became less attractive than originally imagined when in 1943 the previous trend towards ever-increasing combat altitudes ended. The GM-1 saw little use in the second half of the war, but the Focke-Wulf DA-152, which had been developed as a dedicated high-altitude interceptor, also received the GM-1 system to provide it with superior performance at high altitude. The DA-152 was among the fastest piston-engined fighters of the war. It was capable of 755 km per hour at 13,500 meters using the GM-1 boost and 560 km per hour at sea level using the MW-50 methanol water boost. It used the MW-50 system mainly for altitudes up to 1,000 meters and the GM-1 system for higher altitudes, although both systems could be engaged at the same time. Kurt Tank himself was flying an unarmed DA-152 in late 1944 when ground controllers warned him of two P-51 Mustangs. The enemy aircraft appeared behind Tank, but he escaped by applying full power and engaging the MW-50 boost until they were no more than two dots on the horizon. A total of up to 20 pre-production DA-152s were delivered from November of 1944 to service test the aircraft. The third group of Jagdgeschwaders of Fighter Wing 301 was ordered to convert to this type in January of 1945, which it did, and flew them operationally for a short time. The DA-152s were pulled into a special Stabsstaffel or HQ squadron. This squadron never had more than 15 DA-152s available. Since the usual transfer system had broken down, replacement parts became nearly impossible to obtain. The DA-152 scored probably 7 victories and 4 losses in air combat, although a degree of uncertainty about those numbers exists. The Junkers Ju-88S-1, the high-speed bomber and reconnaissance series based on the Junkers Ju-88A4 but with a glazed nose, was the last Luftwaffe aircraft which received the GM-1 boost system. When used in the high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft with the BMW 801 engines, the performance, which fell from 1,730 to 880 horsepower in these machines at an altitude of 10,000 meters, could be increased to 1,400 horsepower using the GM-1. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you and see you in the next video.